Most people think spaghetti westerns start and end with Clint Eastwood, but there's a whole world of great movies nobody remembers. I found 10 hidden spaghetti westerns you've never seen, and I'm counting them down. The Rogers family forces Maria Cain's husband into a robbery, then hangs him for it. Maria wants revenge, so she tracks down Manuel, her ex-lover who's been living as a recluse in an abandoned town. Manuel warns her that going after the Rogers will get her killed. She doesn't care. He knows she won't change her mind, so he picks up his guns again and helps her. By the end, almost everyone's dead. Robert Hossein directed this in France in 1969, which made it unusual since most spaghetti westerns were Italian productions. There's barely any dialogue in the film, just long shots of empty desert, close-ups on faces. Hossein built this sense of inevitable tragedy, everyone trapped by their choices. The film came out right in the middle of Vietnam and the counterculture protests. Critics destroyed it. They wanted Hossein to make statements about capitalism, about war. Instead, he made a film about two exhausted people who fall back in love while fighting a rancher and his sons. The backlash was brutal enough that Hossein didn't direct again for years. Lee Van Cleef had done the Sergio Leone films as a supporting player. This was his first lead in a spaghetti western. He plays bounty hunter Jonathan Corbett, who gets hired to track down a Mexican bandit named Manuel Sanchez. The charge is a murder of a 12-year-old girl. Corbett chases him through the desert, and the longer it goes on, the more respect he develops for how clever Sanchez is. Then things stop adding up. Corbett starts thinking maybe Sanchez didn't do it, and the more Corbett digs, the more suspicious he gets. Sergio Solima made the Big Gundown the same year The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Django came out. Those two became massive hits. The Big Gundown got buried in their success. It's one of the early politically charged westerns. The guilty man turns out to be innocent, framed by powerful people. But Solima didn't make speeches. He focused on the chase, the suspense, this unlikely friendship that develops between a lawman and a peasant who realize they're not so different. Hud Dixon comes back to Blackstone to clear his dead brother's name. His brother was framed for robbing the town bank, then murdered. Hud wants to find out who actually did it, but everyone in Blackstone is either lying or useless or both. The sheriff's a pacifist who won't do anything. The banker's crooked. Except for one person, everyone around him is out for themselves. Corbucci made this right after The Great Silence, and it became the forgotten entry in his filmography. It's basically a detective story where the gunman has to figure out who robbed the bank while everyone lies to his face. Corbucci really hated pacifism and hippie culture, and it shows in this film. The non-violent sheriff comes off as an idiot who makes everything worse. Corbucci was arguing that non-violence doesn't work in the real world. In 1969, that wasn't a popular message. The film has everything Corbucci was known for. Gritty landscapes, flawed characters, dark humor. But underneath it all is this bitter feeling that nobody can be trusted except maybe the one person standing beside you. Mexican outlaw Manuel Vasquez gets out of prison and immediately goes after the man who put him there. He shoots up the guy's ranch and kidnaps his daughter. Bounty hunter Django gets offered double the usual reward to bring Manuel in, dead or alive. This was one of the few spaghetti westerns with a character named Django that wasn't just ripping off the Franco Nero original. It proved you could make a thrilling western on a smaller budget. What starts as a rescue mission turns into this weird partnership between the bounty hunter and the outlaw he's supposed to be hunting. Then Manuel breaks his word and everything goes to hell. The film focuses more on character and plot than the usual action-heavy approach. The final showdown is one of the most creative in the genre. Gary Hamilton gets released from a hard labor camp after serving years for a crime he didn't commit. He immediately goes back to his hometown to get revenge on Acombar, the man who framed him. Gary's return happens to coincide with the town's yearly tornado. The whole place goes dark, winds howling everywhere, and Gary uses it to stalk Acombar and his men through the shadows. This was actually a remake of an earlier 1965 film called A Stranger in Paso Bravo. Same basic plot. Man seeks revenge on the friend who framed him for robbery, but director Antonio Margheriti took it further by setting most of the action during the tornado strike. Klaus Kinski plays Gary, and this is one of his most restrained performances. Kinski was known for going erratic and frantic in his roles, but here he's calm and deliberate. Hamilton knows exactly what his plan is. Seeing Kinski play someone fairly sound-minded instead of theatrical was rare, and it showed how talented he actually was underneath all the madness. Johnny Hamilton comes back from the Civil War and learns his father died while defending a Confederate gold shipment against a Mexican bandit named Santana. Johnny doesn't buy it. His family friend tells him something's wrong with his uncle and that Santana might not actually be dead. The two of them uncover a web of deceit and greed. Johnny is different from the usual spaghetti western protagonist. He's not an anti-hero. He's a weary war veteran who's forced to take action because certain people have frightened. It's kind of a Western version of Shakespeare's Hamlet. Sergio Corbucci originally conceived this and wrote a treatment for it. It was another milestone for spaghetti westerns, a direct adaptation of classic literature. Taking Hamlet's story and moving it to the American West got producers interested. But Corbucci had too many other commitments and passed the project to rising director Enzo Castellari. Mexican gunslinger Pecos Martinez returns to his hometown of Houston to settle a score with outlaw Joe Cain. Cain's taken over the town looking for bank robbery loot his ex-partner stole and hid somewhere. Adriano Bolzoni wrote this and created the genre's first Mexican gunslinger anti-hero. Robert Woods plays Pecos as a man consumed by his tragic past. He's got some honor. He helps people who need it, but his need for revenge means he never sticks around after he saves them. Bolzoni originally wrote this as a loose reworking of A Fistful of Dollars, with the protagonist slowly taking out the main villain's henchmen. It ended up as a revenge story where the bad guy's hunt for hidden loot becomes the thing that gets them killed. Expert gunman Richard Martin gets crippled defending a passenger train from his former partner, Billy Cain. While running a small Wild West shooting show, Martin meets a drifter who is wrongly accused of Cain's crimes. They team up to bring Cain down. Enrico Maria Salerno plays Richard Martin. Salerno was a character actor famous for being Clint Eastwood's Italian voice in the Dollars trilogy. Massimo Dallamano started as an assistant to Sergio Leone, and Bandidos was his first film, his only Western. He learned well from Leone. The film's got this intricate plot with three-dimensional characters dealing with shattered dreams, broken minds, people trying to escape their lives and start over. The two protagonists discover things about themselves while hunting down this bloodthirsty outlaw. There are twists and turns throughout. Dallamano made it look polished on a modest budget. There's a couple of good sets, costumes, cinematography that made the West look majestic without spending a fortune. War veteran Clayton puts his plans to settle down on hold when his sister gets murdered by outlaw Jack Blood. While searching for Blood, Clayton stumbles into a plot to assassinate Union and Confederate generals to keep the Civil War going. This is one of those grossly overlooked spaghetti westerns. The search for a murderer takes a turn when Clayton discovers his target is part of an assassination plot. A weapons dealer orchestrated the whole thing because a peace agreement would cause him financial losses on a recent shipment. Director Paolo Bianchini switches between Clayton's hunt for the killer and the businessman's assassination plot, with a brief detour where Clayton saves a woman being held by the gang. American actor Craig Hill plays Clayton. He was a Hollywood hopeful who found success in Europe instead. He's not in the same league as Eastwood or Van Cleef, but he brought intensity and solid acting to the role. Confederate prisoner Michael Random gets released and honors a promise to a dying fellow prisoner. He goes to Virginia to help the man's family with their struggling farm. Random falls in love with the sister, but then she gets kidnapped by rogue bounty hunters who've been murdering pardoned Confederate outlaws. Random has to return to his gunslinger past. This was part of what people call the Twilight Spaghetti Westerns, films made between 1975 and 1978 trying to revive the dying genre. California brought the genre back to its gritty, darker roots. It's set right as the Civil War ends with Lee's surrender and the early days of Reconstruction. The first half hour deals with the hatred Confederate soldiers faced returning home from prison camps. Random wants to leave his dark past behind, gets pushed toward starting over after watching his traveling companion get wrongfully shot. He honors a promise to look after the dead man's family in Virginia and falls for the sister. His life gets new meaning after thinking it was lost forever. Giuliano Gemma plays Random in his third-to-last Western. Gemma was usually known for playing lovable, smart characters, but here he plays completely against type, world-weary and haunted. Random's lost after his time in the Civil War, wants nothing more than to disappear. An optimistic fellow prisoner who gets tragically killed in front of him, and the man's family help change his mind and show him life's still worth living. But corrupt bounty killers test whether Random can hold on to that newfound hope.